Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I'm the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is part of our leadership team series of webinars that we do every month. And today we're going to be talking about the chapter goals. One of the great things in BNI Connect is that it does have a place where you can enter your chapter goals for either the 6-month period or for up to a year if you'd like to, and follow along with them throughout the year. It really helps you to stay organized and stay on track and focused with what you're doing in your chapter. Those goals can also be shared with the other people in your chapter so that they can follow along, although you do have to be on the leadership team in order to enter or edit the goals. We're going to follow this up tomorrow with our final webinar of January, and we're going to be talking about the online renewals. A couple of quick housekeeping things before we get started with today's topic, and that is that this is a live webinar. So those of you that are here with me on January 25th, 2017, thank you so much for being here, and you have the added privilege of being able to ask questions as we're going along. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, criticisms, or compliments as we're going through today, please feel free to type those in to the questions panel in the webinar software. I can see those pop up on my screen, and I will be happy to answer those as we are going along today. For those of you that are listening to this on a recording, we do record every single one of our webinars and make them available on the support site on BNI Connect. You get there by clicking on the question mark in the upper right-hand corner, right up here. So click that. That will bring you over to the help site, or go to youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. We do try to keep all of these webinars, with the exception of one, which is the leadership team tools, but all the other webinars on a monthly basis, we try to keep to a half hour so that we're respectful of everybody's time. I know you guys took time out of your busy day and your busy schedules and your busy lives and your clients and phone calls and emails and all of that to spend a little bit of that time with me today. So I will try to make sure that the content portion is done by the bottom of the hour. That said, I am always happy to stay on these webinars until every single question has been answered. So if you have time and you want to ask questions or talk about anything else in BNI Connect, I will hang out with you, because that's what I do all day, every day. I talk about and answer questions about BNI Connect. All right, so why don't we go ahead and get started? And as I said, today's topic is the goals in BNI Connect, and there's a way that you can manage your goals, track your goals, and then also BNI Connect will fill in the results throughout the year as you're going along. Now, we do this in BNI Connect. Anytime we have data entry type stuff to do, we're always going to go to the operations menu. So to get to the goals is no different. We're going to go to operations. And this is really where all of that day-to-day and week-to-week management stuff is for mostly the leadership team in the chapter, though there's some member tools in here as well. The place we're going to go is about halfway down the list here, and you'll see a topic called Manage Goals. Under Manage Goals, you will have two different options. One is Manage Chapter Goals, and one is to View Chapter Goals. I'm sorry, Enter Chapter Goals and View Chapter Goals. Now, if you are on the leadership team or you're a director, meaning that you're the president, the vice president, or the secretary-treasurer, you should be able to see both of those options. If you happen to be on the call today and you're just, I don't want to say just a member, but you're not part of that leadership team, you should still be able to see View Chapter Goals. And this should be available for members of the chapter can also follow along with the progress throughout the year. So the first thing we need to do is let's go in and we're going to enter our goals for our chapter. Now, if you're a director consultant, do make sure that you have the right chapter in the drop-down box up here. When I click on Enter Chapter Goals, the first thing it's going to do is present me with a couple of options here. The first option is I can choose the start, month, and day that I want to enter the goals. By default, it's going to give me the next fiscal 6 months, or BNI works on a 6-month cycle. I don't know why these dates were chosen historically, but it's always April to October, then October back to April. Those are the leadership team terms. So that's our kind of BNI year, as it would be. So it's going to assume that you've already filled out your goals for this 6-month period. It's going to bring you right to the next 6-month period. Now, that said, you can really choose any time period you want to. You don't have to start with next month, or you don't have to backtrack. As a matter of fact, I'm going to change this, and I'm going to start this with January. So I want to do January through the next 6 months. It does only work in 6-month periods, but again, you can choose any 6-month period you want to. The next two things you only have to do once, and that is the long-term vision and mission statement. So the long-term vision is going to be, it's your guiding light as to where you want to get to. There's a lot of people that have said over the years, begin with the end in mind. You have to have a destination in order to get to that. And that's really what this long-term vision is going to be. It's not really where do I want to be in 1 month, 2 months, 6 months. That's what we're going to do the goals for. But where do we want to be long-term? And for my BNI Burr chapter up in Antarctica, I always say up in Antarctica, it's actually down in Antarctica. But anyway, in my Burr chapter in Antarctica, our long-term vision is to grow this chapter to be the largest chapter in the entire continent. In addition, we wish it to be the #1 chapter in closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. So this is kind of like our war cry, our chant that we're going to try to aspire to. Now, I can tell you in a lot of chapters, this is actually what they announce right at the beginning of the agenda, that what their goal is going to be for that chapter long term. And it helps to solidify that in the minds of the members as well. Now, the second part of this is the mission statement. So if the long-term vision is kind of like that light at the end of the tunnel of where you want to get to, the mission statement is your guiding principles of how you're going to get there. So that if the long-term vision is really kind of your destination on the highway, what kind of car are you going to drive to get there? Is it going to be an old beater, or is it going to be something a little higher class than that? So the mission statement, we're going to get to our long-term vision of being the largest chapter in the entire continent by helping members to increase their business through a structured, positive, and professional word-of-mouth program that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals. Now, if you didn't know it, that's actually the BNI mission statement. You do want to come up with your own mission statement, something that's going to drive you in your chapter. So once you've done those two things, and again, these will come back just like they did for me. If you've ever done them before, you can make edits to them if you want to. Once I click go, what it's going to do is it's going to basically create a spreadsheet for me for the next 6-month period beginning with January. So you can see here it put in the dates at the top of the spreadsheet here, January through June. And then down along here we have our various success drivers. These are our chapter success drivers, or the things we're going to be measuring as part of our ideal growth pattern here. Those success drivers are attendance, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs or chapter education units, visitors, new memberships, number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. All right, and really the whole point of this is that we're going to go through and we're going to fill this out with a whole bunch of numbers. So before I do that, there is one quick thing that I want to call your attention to, and that is the very first line here. It says enter goals for the whole chapter or per member. Basically what that's saying is, do you want to work with a really big number, or do you want to work with a smaller number? Most of the time, people, probably 90% of the time that I see this done, people are using the whole chapter number. So they do their kind of mental calculations and come up with the figure that they want the whole chapter achieved by the end of the month. Now, you can choose to do the per member number, so per member per month. Keep in mind that when we get to viewing the goals a little bit later, what it will end up doing is doing a calculation for you to calculate out the chapter goal based on your goal number of members. And that's the really important thing to keep in mind if you choose to use the per member number. It will calculate it out based on your goal number of members. All right, so let's take a look at each of these individual goals. So this first one here is probably the easiest one to look at, attendance percentage. And what do we want to do for our attendance? So here's one other thing that I'd like to share with you. This is my theory of doing it. You don't have to do it this way. You can do it however you want to, but I usually like to begin with the month that we're currently in, or even the month before. And one of the reasons why is because you know where you are at that point in time. So right now we're almost at the end of January here. We're more than the 25th of January, so we really have less than 1 week left in the month. So we kind of have a pretty good idea of where we're going to end up this month. So I can start here with January and know that right now our chapter, it's pretty cold in the Antarctic, and we're having some attendance issues, and we're only getting about 86% of our members that show up to the weekly meetings. Now we're going to try to fix that, right? What I like to say is, where do I want to get to in 6 months? So again, begin with the end in mind. So I can jump all the way to June here and put in, what's my goal for June? You know what? I'd like to make sure that we get to 96%. So we're going to jump up by a whole 10 percentage points over the course of the next 5 months. Is it realistic? Perhaps. I like to shoot big. So then this just becomes I can fill in the numbers in between. So if I know I got to get from 86 to 96, that's going to be about 2%, I believe, per month, if my math is correct. So 88, 90, 92, 94, and 96. So nice steady growth over the course of that 6 months. Now, a lot of people will come back to me and say, you know what, that is really, really simplistic. We know that in the middle of December, attendance is going to drop off a lot, and then in April, everybody goes on vacation, so it's going to drop off again in that month. And you know what? You can take all those factors into consideration if you'd like to, and please do. What I caution you against is making it overly complicated. One of the things that's very easy to do is to overanalyze this, and people get caught paralyzed by all of the possibilities. What I would rather see is that you get something in there, then you start tweaking it later, rather than be so caught up in the minutia of it to end up with nothing as the end result. So again, my advice to you, start simple and then work your way into the details later once you have everything at least primarily established. So that said, what we have here now is our goals for attendance percentage, 86 to 96. Awesome. So the next thing we have on this list, it's not just about putting the numbers in, but what we have here is mechanisms. So you'll notice for each month, you have the opportunity to put in 2 different mechanisms. And what the mechanisms are the supporting activities for achieving that particular goal. Now, I've been a BNI member. I'm still a BNI member, by the way. My meetings are Thursday. We meet tomorrow morning. I'm in the Wakefield chapter, where I've been a member since 2002. So in the past 15 years, I've been on the leadership team a couple of times. I've been president, I've been vice president, I've been the education coordinator, I've been a number of different roles in the chapter. And the thing about being on the leadership team is that we're all really busy. We all have, our jobs and our lives and our families and, whatever charities you're involved with, and church and school and whatever else. So it's easy to get sidetracked, and we have all these grand ideas for how we're going to do things with our chapter, whether it's a visitor's day or whether it's some type of an event or whatever it might be. And what happens is we get off track. what the mechanisms are meant to do is to be your reminders so that you can kind of plan out your BNI year. So, for example, with attendance, what are ways that we can increase attendance or get our chapter to help increase attendance? And one of those ways is, let's say, by doing an educational moment. We could start out with an educational moment. I'm just going to abbreviate that. Educational moment on the importance of attending the meeting. So we're going to do that in February. The other thing that maybe we want to do is we want to make sure that our leadership team is sending out control letters. So when a person is absent, we want to make sure that we send out that accountability letter saying, hey, you know what, we missed you this week. And when they're absent a second time, hey, just so you know, you have 2 absences, and we follow along with that. So I'm going to make sure that we also are sending out accountability letters. Right, so and then in March, what are things that we can do in March to help out with that? Maybe we want to have a special, bring your substitute day. Right, a lot of people are nervous to bring substitutes or ask somebody to substitute for them because they feel that, maybe the person's going to be intimidated by the meeting. They've never seen BNI before. Why not bring them as a visitor with you there so you can introduce them to you and they'd feel more comfortable subbing for you in the future. So that is another type of mechanism. Now you can fill all of these out. You can fill out some of them, whatever you're comfortable with doing. If you're looking for some ideas, you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, we have a thing that says the Chapter Goal Guide. If you click on Chapter Goal Guide, these are some possible mechanisms for each of the benchmarks, the success drivers that we have. So we can see here, under attendance, there's some different options here. So implementing the mentoring program, or playing the BNI game, or acknowledging people. Here's a nice positive one. Acknowledging people for perfect attendance on a monthly basis. So you can also just highlight that, right click and choose copy. And I'm going to paste this in here. You know what? We want to start that right away. And I want to make sure that we're doing this every month so we can remind ourselves to do that. So it's a great way to keep yourself on track. And if you're following up with these goals and you're keeping track of them throughout the year, again, this is your reminder to continue to do those things. All right, so that's the attendance percentage. And now we can look at some of the other ones. Now, I would love it if I could actually rearrange the order of this, but I like to skip down actually to, I think the next most important success driver is the size of your chapter, and I think that will actually help determine everything else on the list. So I like to skip all the way down to number of members in chapter. Number of members in chapter. That's the next success driver that I like to put in. So how big do you want your chapter to be? Well, again, because I started with this month, I know where our chapter is now. And our chapter, we're growing. There's not a huge population in Antarctica, but we're trying to grow. So we're at 22 right now. And you know what? We'd really like to get above 30. So we're going to go to 32 in the next 6 months. So that's a nice steady growth over the course of the next 6-month period by June. So now, because I have my beginning number, I have my end number, I can kind of do a nice linear path here. Let's see, so we got 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. Excellent. Now we have our number of members in chapter, and of course now we can do our various mechanisms. And again, you can skip around here if you know certain things are going to happen at certain times. Like we know that we have member extravaganza coming up in the spring. That's where you can win, either a trip or a prize from your regional office for sponsoring a certain number of members into the chapter. So we know that we want to have a Visitors Day in April so that we can qualify for the membership extravaganza. So we're going to make sure that I put in here Visitor Day. And of course, if we're going to be doing a Visitor Day, it actually takes between 30 and 45 days to prepare for that Visitor Day if you do it by BNI standards, where you're sending out, the letters, you're inviting people ahead of time, you're following up with them, you're taking it through the whole process. So we actually need to start planning. So we need to announce our Visitor Day, and we need to plan the Visitor Day, and we need to make sure we do a follow-up. So now we have 4 mechanisms already filled out just from one event. So there's other things that you can do as well. I mean, another great summer, late spring summer activity as people start getting a little bit disengaged because of holidays and travel and summertime, kids are off from school and stuff like that. I find a great thing to do is the BNI Game. And that's where you break your chapter into multiple teams, usually 3 or 4 teams, and you compete against each other for points so that, every time somebody on your team brings a visitor, for example, maybe the team gets 10 points. And every time you bring a referral, maybe that's 5 points. And if you sponsor a new member in the chapter, you know what? Maybe that's 50 points for your team. You can really organize that any way you'd like to with your particular chapter. I mean, some people even do negative points for absences, and I tend to like to just one of the BNI mottos is positive and supportive. Positive and supportive. So I like to use the positive and supportive feedback as opposed to the negative feedback. All right, and again, there's plenty of these things that you can fill out, and just visit the chapter goal guide if you'd like some additional ideas. All right, so number of members in our chapters. If we know the number of members in our chapter and we know how much we have to grow by, the next thing we really can figure out is, well, how many new memberships do we need in order to get to that point? So if I know I'm growing by 2 members each month, I know I'm going to need, well, 2 new members each month, right? 2 new memberships. Well, sort of. You can go with 2 new memberships, but that would be assuming that you have 100% retention. Now, I don't know any BNI chapter in the world that has 100% retention, because you know what? Stuff happens. Life happens. People get promoted, people change jobs, people move to a different city. You might have a child and need to take a break from BNI, and hopefully you'll come back later. But in reality, we do have attrition. We have people that leave the chapter. Now, on average, a chapter will lose approximately 1 member per month over the course of a year. Approximately. That's the average on a national basis. So in order to grow by 2, we actually need that 1 maintenance and 2 new members. So what we really, really need is 3 new memberships per month in order to grow by 2. And you know what? If some months we have perfect retention, we can just grow a little bit faster. So I think that's a great idea. Now, mechanisms, of course, you can put in additional mechanisms for this. One mechanism might be making sure that you're doing visitor orientation. That's where you excuse the visitors at the end of the meeting, and the visitor host talks with them and lets them know about the investment to join and answers any questions that visitors might have. A lot of times the reason that visitors don't apply is because they were never asked to apply. So make sure that you ask them. And again, chapter goal guide, that will show you plenty more mechanisms, but I know we have about 4 minutes left or so, and I want to get through the rest of these also. So the next one I want to take a look at here is visitors. Now, visitors, because we know the number of new members that we need, new members come from visitors. Visitors are the lifeblood of our chapter. So this one may take a little bit of research in your chapter, and what you want to do is you kind of want to look at what your conversion rate is. Now you can find this if you're using the traffic lights report. There is a chapter traffic lights report available in the reports in BNI Connect if you'd like to check that out. But think about how many visitors come through your door on a monthly basis and how many members are you averaging. So let's say that you have, I don't know, you have 6 visitors in a month and 2 of those become members. That's essentially a 1 in 3 ratio, right? A 33% conversion ratio, which could be high, it could be low. It really depends on your chapter. So what you need to do is once you figure out that conversion ratio, you need to multiply the number of visitors by how many new members you want. So let's say that our conversion ratio is 1 in 3. So if I want to have 3 new members a month, I'm going to need at least 9 visitors each month in order to achieve or even have a chance at achieving those goals of new members. Yep, and again, we have some different mechanisms for that. Now, some of the mechanisms that you have for other goals, for example, we have our visitor day process here. That actually works for visitors as well. So we can put in, the visitor day prep times in here as a reminder there, or you can put new things in there also. All right, so that brings us to our growth phase. Now we have our activity phase of the things that we're doing in the chapter on a weekly basis, and that's namely referrals, thank you for closed business, CEUs, and one-to-ones. Now in my area, we prescribe to a thing called the power of 1, where our goal on a weekly basis is to make sure that we are participating by having at least 1 one-to-one per week, bringing 1 referral per week, having at least 1 CEU per week, and this counts as a CEU for you, so congratulations. And we would like to have no more than 1 absence every 6 months. So that makes this total number of one-to-ones, referrals, and CEUs a pretty easy thing, because all I want to do is take the number of members in the chapter. I'm going to multiply that by 4 because I'm going to assume 4 weeks in each month, and we're going to multiply that by the number of members. So our goal is we want to make sure we have 88 referrals, and then we have 24 times that, so that's going to be 96, and then 104, 112, 120, and 128. Right? And because we're prescribing to the power of 1, it's actually the same for CEUs, and it's the same for one-to-ones. So pretty straightforward there. And then the final thing we have, thank you for closed business. Now, thank you for closed business. This one, although it should accelerate each month, what I like to do is, what's our end number for the end of the year? If you want to be let's say $1 million chapter, you're going to need to pass just slightly less than $100,000 a month. So I'm going to put in a goal of $100,000 per month and put that in for each of the months. And that would make me, if we hit our goals, $1 million chapter for the month, for the year. Right, and of course you can put in your mechanisms for that, maybe making sure people are using the online slips program, encouraging people to turn in their thank you for closed business. And when you're all set, make sure you click save. And by the way, you can click save while you're doing this, and I highly recommend that you do, especially if you take a phone call, walk away. If you are gone for more than a half hour, BNI Connect will log you out of the system and you will lose everything. So make sure that you save once in a while. Once you've done all of that and you've saved it, now we can go back and view our chapter goals. So I can go back to Manage Goals and view chapter goals. I can choose the period that I'd like to view it for, and this time it's going to give us our current 6-month period. But of course you can change that. I did put in from January. So if I want to start viewing them from January, I can do that as well. And again, you can use this as your reminder of things that you're going to do. Your chapter members should have access to this report as well, or you can always print it out and share it with your members if you would like to. Now, by the way, I did put a handout into the handout section of the software here that is basically a blank goals form if you would prefer to do this offline at, let's say, a leadership team meeting and then get together and put them in online later. So let me just show you real quick there's one, well, more than one, but there's one region here in the United States that every single chapter in the region uses this. And go figure, they are one of the most successful BNI regions in the world. I think they have an average chapter size of somewhere around 48 members. So I know I can pretty much go to any of these chapters and everybody has their goals filled out. So we have, again, this is the BNI Money Source chapter. For the next 12 months, Money Source will become a stronger, more focused Givers Gain chapter. And their mission statement this term, our leadership will focus on the power of one. Again, that one referral per week, one CEU per week, and one one-to-one per week. And we can then follow along. So we can see that BNI Connect has started to fill in the actual results up through January, and this is based on the PALMS reports. So we have, their goal is 100% attendance. They have been achieving 93, 93, 96, and 96, and they have all their various mechanisms that they're going to do. They're going to play the attendance game. They're going to educate members on how to find a sub. So you can follow along with all of these. You can see they are their goal is to get to 56 members, and they're at about 40 members now. They're at 37, 39, 38 members. So, all right, we are at the bottom of the hour. We're actually 2 minutes over. I apologize for that, but I want to thank everybody for being here today. I'd also like to open this up to any questions. If anybody has questions, feel free to start typing those in now. Just a reminder that this is being recorded and we will make it available on the support site. So you can get there by clicking on this question mark in the upper right-hand corner. That will take you to our support site. And the webinars are either in live and recorded webinars. You can find our upcoming series. I will be listing that very, very shortly. We are, I'm actually planning those out today for the next 2 months. We also have our recording, so if you'd like to review this one, it will be in the January series as soon as I can get it uploaded to YouTube, but you can also check out any of the other webinars that took place this month. A good referral for me is to share these links with other people in your chapter, and any new members that come on board, please let them know that this resource is available for them so that they can learn more to earn more. All right, so I don't see any questions. What I'd like to do is thank everybody for being here today. I do look forward to seeing you on a future webinar, and as always, happy connecting.